Okay, so I want to work out some of the problems for our Alex homework just to make sure that everybody's comfortable with graphing these quadratics. So we got 7 problems. The first problem says find all the zeros of the quadratic. So this is exactly what we've been doing up to this point, that when you're finding the zeros, what you're doing is you're finding the solutions. You're finding the roots. All of these words are interchangeable, the x-intercepts. So if we remember, the first thing that you need to do is that you need to set your quadratic equal to 0. So we are going to let y equal 0, okay? And the reason that is, if you look at a graph, what we're doing is we're looking at where it crosses or intersects the x-axis. And at that point, your y value on this line, okay, this is where y equals 0, right? So we're going to let y equal 0. So we've got 0 equals x squared minus 11x plus 24. So we have a couple different techniques that we could solve this now. We could use factoring, we could use the quadratic formula, or we could graph. But let's go ahead. The easiest route will be to factor. If it's possible to factor this, that's going to be the quickest method to use. So I'd always say when you're solving a quadratic, always try and factor first. So since I have a leading coefficient of 1, correct? I know that this trinomial will factor into 2 binomials, okay? 2 binomials. And so they both will start with x. And I need 2 numbers that multiply together to give me positive 24 and add together to give me negative 11. So since they multiply together to give me a positive number and add together to give me a negative, I know they'll both be negative, and my numbers will be -3 and -8. Okay, if you want to check that, -3 times -8 is 24. -3 plus -8 is -11. Okay, so we factored. Now to solve or to find your zeros, what we're going to do is we're going to set each factor equal to 0. Oops. Each factor equal to 0. And so when you solve this one over here, you'll add 3 to both sides. So you'll have x equals 3. That's going to be one of my solutions. And then when you add 8 to both sides, you'll have x equals 8. Okay. Now, like I said, we call these solutions, we call them roots, x-intercepts, we could call them zeros, okay? All 4 of those mean the same exact thing. So I will put in my zeros. I'm gonna have to separate them with commas, 3 and 8, okay? If there were, if there were no solutions, you would click on none. I'm pretty sure that all of them will have solutions here, okay? All right, so let's move on. Number 2 asks us about our vertex, okay? So if we remember, the vertex happens either at the maximum or the minimum of my parabola. So if your parabola, let's draw a couple possible parabolas that we got going on. Okay, so if you have a parabola that opens like this, your point will be a minimum value. Okay, if your parabola opens like that, it'll be a maximum value. So we could graph this to see what it looks like, or what we could do, like I had said in the at the end of the last video, you look at the sign of your A coefficient, of the coefficient A, right? Here you have a -3, okay? So since this is a negative, okay, when your A is negative, okay, it opens down, we say, okay? It looks like the arch. So with this one, since my A is negative, we are going to have a maximum value. So What would a minimum value look like if your A was positive? Okay, so this is just a quick way of us being able to look at the equation and start seeing the picture in our minds. Okay, just like if you were reading a story in, in an English class. Okay, as you read the words, you start developing a picture in your mind of the scenario of whatever's going on. That's the same in math. You're gonna be able to start reading these equations and start being able to see the pictures in your mind. Okay, so the next questions are going to ask us, where does this minimum or maximum value occur? So if you recall, the vertex is that minimum or maximum point. So what they're asking for is, what is the x coordinate of the vertex? So let's recall our formula for the vertex, okay? So our vertex is going to be two coordinates because it's a point, right? You need an x value and a y value. So the vertex, what they want to know is, where does the minimum or maximum value occur? That's asking for the x value. Okay, so this is asking for the x value of your vertex. When I ask you what is the function's minimum or maximum, okay, so when we're talking about a function, the value of the function, what we're doing is we're talking about the y value. Okay, so what's the y value? So when I'm talking about the value of a function, I need the y value. So this will ask for the y value of the vertex. Okay, this is the x value of the vertex, and that's the y value down there. Okay, so the equation for the vertex, to find the x, okay, to find the x, let me erase some of this that we don't need. The x is equal to negative b all over 2a. All right, so in my equation, what is my b? Well, my b is -6. So be careful, when your b is negative, you're going to end up with two negatives right there, okay? And then the a is a -3. Okay, so let's simplify this. -6 is a +6. 2 times -3 is a -6. A positive divided by a negative is a negative. 6 divided by 6 is -1. So where does the maximum value occur? Okay, it's going to be at -1. So we're going to be at -1 on the x. Now, how do you figure out the y value? Okay, so let's actually, I'm going to draw a possible thing right here. Okay, so this may be our thing over here. So I've got -1. I know that my maximum is going to happen somewhere along this line. So let's figure out what the y value is. Okay, so the y value, what you do is you take this -1 and you plug it in. So I'm going to say f of -1 equals -3 times -1 squared minus 6 times -1 plus 1. Okay, so I just took my equation up there and I plugged in -1. So this is going to be equal to -1 squared is just a +1. +1 times -3 is -3. -6 times -1 is a +6 plus 1. So you have 6 plus 1 is 7. 7 minus 3 is 4. So your f of -1, meaning your function evaluated at -1, is 4. Okay, so our maximum occurs at 4. Okay, our maximum is 4. Sorry, our maximum is 4, and it occurs at -1. So over back here, so y being 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, we'll say that's it. I know that my maximum point is going to happen here. Okay, and to be able to draw this more effectively, I should find a couple more points, maybe the roots that would really help me, but a general idea is that it's going to look something like that. Okay, so when you're doing question 2, and I think question 3 is the exact same. The first thing you have to do is evaluate, determine whether it's a maximum or minimum. So look at your A value. And then you're going to, for the next 2 parts, you're going to find the vertex. So the first one will be the X value of the vertex, and then the second one will be the Y value of the vertex. Okay, so question 3 is the same exact thing. Just work it out that way. And then let's move on to 4. So 4, we're actually going to be graphing the parabola. So when you graph, the very first thing that you want to do is you want to identify what your vertex is. Once you do that, it becomes a lot easier finding other points because the vertex occurs on the axis of symmetry, meaning the points to the left and right to it will be identical, okay? So we need to start by creating an XY chart. And so since we're using a computer, it's very nice. All we're gonna need to find are 3 points, okay? 3 points, that's it. Let's go ahead and find out what is the vertex of my guy, okay? So finding the vertex, you say X equals negative B all over 2A. Okay, here my B is 8 and my A is 1. Okay, so it's going to be X equals negative 8 over 2 times 1. So I have negative 8 over 2, which is equal to negative 4. So I know my vertex occurs at X equals negative 4. Okay, so what's the Y value? Well, all you have to do is find F of negative 4, meaning that everywhere you see an X inside of this equation, I'm going to plug in a negative 4. So I have negative 4 squared plus 8 times negative 4 plus 21. Okay, so this equals a positive 16 minus 32 plus 21. Okay, 16 minus 32 gives me a negative 16 plus 21. Negative 16 plus 21 gives me a positive 5. Okay, so you have to find your 1 point, okay? Now, since we are working with a computer, it's a lot nicer. We don't have to be as systematic with the points that we choose. What I recommend is choosing a very, very simple point. I like to choose 0. I think that's, well, actually, let's not do 0 on this one. Let's do something closer. Let's just do negative 3. We'll do negative 3 and we'll do negative 5. Okay, so let's first find we need to find out what is F of negative 3. So we'll do that one. Okay, F of negative 3. Okay, so F of negative 3. So I have negative 3 squared plus 8 times negative 3 plus 21. All right, so negative 3 squared is a positive 9 minus 24 plus 21. Negative 24 plus 21 gives me a negative 3. 9 minus 3 is 6. So I know since negative 3 is 6, that negative 5 will also be 6, okay? All right, so let's start graphing this. So I'm going to take my pencil and make the points first, okay? So my vertex happens at negative 4 up 5. Okay, negative 4 up 5. And then my other points are going to be negative 3 up 6 and negative 5 up 6, okay? Then I'm going to take this guy over here. Make sure you plot 5 points. Oh, okay. We do need to plot 5 points. Okay, so let's go ahead and find one more. I apologize for that. So you do need to Yeah, it does say plot 2 points to the right of the vertex and to the left of the vertex. Okay, so let's go ahead and give this another row over here. X, Y. All right, so we'll go -2, and then we'll do this -6. Okay, so let's find f of -2. Erase all this. F of -2. Okay, all I'm going to do is plug -2 in. So I have -2 squared plus 8 times -2 plus 21. Okay, so I'm just plugging in -2 for this guy. So f of -2 equals a +4 minus 16 plus 21. For a -16 plus 21 gives me a +5. So this equals 9. So f of -2 equals 9. So since we are symmetric with the vertex, I know that this will also be 9. Okay, so let's grab another point. All right, so I'm going to be at -2 up 9. Okay, and the same over here. I'll be over to -6 up 9. All right, now let's go ahead. All you had to do is click it and it drew it for you. Okay, so nothing too difficult about that. So let's check that answer, make sure that we're correct, and we're good. Okay, so you're going to first find the vertex, and then you'll pick points to the left and right of the vertex, and then make it easy on yourself. Use the idea that the vertex occurs at the axis of symmetry. So I know that everything on the left-hand side will be identical to the right-hand side. All right. Now I believe 5 is going to be the same thing. Okay. All you're going to be doing is graphing that parabola. Okay. Okay. So on 6, you will graph the parabola, but then in addition to that, you're going to be identifying what the solutions are. So let's take a little bit of time to do that. All right. So this is my function, x squared minus 10x plus 24. So let's go ahead and graph. I'm going to need to find my vertex first. Okay, so my vertex, I need an x and a y. So my x is equal to -b all over 2a. Well, what's my b? My b is -10. So I'll plug that in, -10. And then what's my a? My a is just going to be a +1, right? Because I don't see anything right there. So it means it's a +1. Okay, so then the vertex ends up being +10 all over 2, which is 5. Okay, so if I'm looking at my XY chart, okay, I'm going to need to find 5 total points. 2, 3. Okay, and then the middle one, I'm going to put my 5 there, okay, for my vertex. And now let's figure out what is the Y value when you plug 5 in. So I'm just needing to look here. Okay, so what they did was they set the Y value equal to 0 because they're talking about the solutions, which happens when Y is 0. So all we care about is this x squared minus 10x plus 24. Okay, and so what do I need to plug in? I need to plug in 5. So let's go ahead and do that. So I have 5 squared minus 10 times 5 plus 24. So what is this going to give me? This is going to be my Y value. Okay, so I got 25 minus 50 plus 24. 25 minus 50 is a -25 plus 24, Y equals -1. Okay, so that's going to be my first point. So what do we need to do now? We need to pick 4 more points. I'm going to pick the 4 and the 3. So I'm just going to go backwards. And then here I'll pick 6 and 7. Okay. And it doesn't really matter which way you go if you put the 6 and the 7 up there. The idea is that I just want 2 points to the right and 2 points to the left, okay? All right, let me make myself some room over here. So now that we have the vertex, we're gonna find these other 2 points on the sides, on each side. So plugging in x equals 4, I have 4 squared minus 10 times 4 plus 24. 4 squared is 16 minus 40 plus 24, okay? 24 plus 16 gives me 40, a positive 40, all right? Minus 40, that's just gonna be 0. So if 4 is 0, so will 6 be. 6 will also be 0. Okay, lastly, let's plug in the 3. Okay, so I have 3 squared minus 10 times 3 plus 24. So 3 squared is 9 minus 30 plus 24. Negative 30 plus 24 gives me a negative 6. 9 minus 6 is 3. So since my 3 is 3, my 7 will also be 3. Okay, so now that we have our XY chart all filled out, let's go ahead and plot our points, and then we'll also draw the parabola. So we have our vertex is 5, okay, on the x-axis, 5, negative 1. And then at 4, it's 0, and so is at 6. All right, and then at 3, it's 3. And at 7, it's 3 as well. Okay. All right. Connect those dots. We've got it. So what are the solutions? Now, if you remember, guys, the solutions are where they cross the x-axis. So they cross the x-axis at x equals 4 and x equals 6. You can see that over here on our XY chart, that when the y value is 0, our x's are 4 and 6. Okay, so let's go ahead. We'll put 4 and 6. And we'll check that to make sure that we're good. And we're good, okay? Finally, number 7. Number 7 is the exact same, okay? So if you guys have any more questions on these, just let me know.